Hi all, welcome to the channel, welcome to the workshop. So today we've got another mega pack of the Megazord. It looks like we're just concentrating mainly on the saber-toothed tiger, and we have a little bit of work to do to the mastodon as well. In this pack, we have had some replacement parts. Now, they did say about the colour for the saber-toothed tiger head, and we have got a few other replacement parts, obviously bits that you potentially would damage taking apart the saber-toothed head. Now, I haven't opened them, as you can see. Now, for me, the colour on that is not horrendous. I mean, the head is possibly a little bit on the light side, and it doesn't quite match the plastic, but that's not a big deal. It doesn't look too bad. Interesting enough, they've only given us one half. They haven't given us the other half. I don't know if they're going to replace the other half or not, but that is definitely darker than what I've got here. I'll show you that on the workbench in a moment, and I'll probably get this out. But this one's definitely darker, and it probably does match the plastic a little bit more. Now, if they'd given us two of these, so the left and the right, I might have been inclined to change it. But for now, if they're only going to give us this, I'm going to have a two-tone head, which I know a lot of people did have originally. They seem to have one darker side, one lighter side, whereas I've got two halves that are exact same colour, so I'm not too worried about that. But maybe if they supply enough one of these, maybe I'll do it. Not actually sure how difficult it is to get the head off of there, how much disassembly is required, but as I say, I'll show you that anyway on the workbench. But for now, let's get into it. Let's get building.
Welcome to the workshop, tools in the light, screws and glue, they're holding it tight. Piece by piece, it's a builder's delight, making dreams in the still of the night. Let's get into it, let's get building now. Put it all together, I'll show you how. Screw by screw and a little glue too. Welcome to the workshop, it's waiting for you.
Right, as I said, we've got these spare parts. So we've got issue 6, issue 7, and issue 5. If I just open this one up, and I'll pull the head out. So that, as you know, is die-cast metal. This is plastic, and you can see, I don't know if the camera will pick it up or not, there is a slight colour variation to that, but it's really not a big deal. Now if I bring it over what I've got already, and compare that to there, now that I think looks like it's showing off on camera, that's pretty much the same colour, whereas this, you can hopefully see that the head on here is lighter. So that's why they're replacing the part, but I don't understand why they're only replacing this. Why have they given us all of these bits if they're only giving us this one half? Because as you can imagine, if I replace that, I'm going to have a two-tone head, because that is definitely darker than what I've got here. As you can probably tell on camera, I know yellow is a bit of a iffy colour to show on camera, but that's definitely darker than this. So I'm not going to change that if we're not getting this side, because, as I say, I'll end up with a two-tone tiger head, which I don't really want. And you can see the colour variation there, I think, as I move that over. So you can see it's a better colour match for the plastic. But yeah, if they're only supplying that, then I'm not replacing that. So for now, all these spare parts that we've been given, I'm just going to put back in the box and not worry about those. Now they've given us these bits because we obviously glued these tusks in place, so we'll probably break those, taking those off. And obviously we need to prise off this red cap just to be able to get to the screws in there. So that's why they've supplied so many parts rather than just this. But it does look like they've supplied an entire pack, as you can see. So why they couldn't just supply that piece and the relevant pieces, I don't know. But as I say, those are all going to go back in the box, and we'll carry on with the actual pack. Right, so we're going to kick off the actual build with issue 64 and 65. There's not a great deal to do in these two, and we're pretty much just working on the same part. So as you can see, we've got the rear leg of the Sabertooth, and we'll end up with that. So it's not a great deal there. We flick through the rest of the magazine, and then in 65 we have more of the leg. So we're going to build up what we've just built onto. Now, I have a feeling there's probably going to be a little bit of doubling up in this stage, in this build pack, just because of what we're working on. Right, so first things first, we're going to be creating the foot. So we have this piece that's going to go in like so. And then we're going to close that off with this piece. And then we're going to use a single PWB screw to secure that together. Now we had two types of screws. We had two PB screws and 4 PWB screws. And it's a PWB screw that we're going to be using for this. So that's the foot. Put that to one side for a second. Going to bring over this side. And we have our little hinge or joint. And we're just going to push that in there. Again, just going to use the workbench to help me out there. Just making sure that's pushed all the way through, like so. We're going to take our foot, and we need our little silicone washer that we've got here. Now, there are 2 of those. We're going to just take our foot, which is going to go this way around. We're going to put one of our washers just there, and then the foot's going to go in like so. The other washer is going to go on this side, and then we're going to close all that up with this piece here. And then we have a PWB screw that's going to go through the hole there. Like so. Now, we tighten that up enough, obviously those silicone washers are going to hold that in place. I'm going to finish up with a PB screw just going through here. That's all there is to do in that stage, so we'll move straight on to 65. So just going to cut those off. And with our leg this way up, we need these two with the larger openings. And they've got these little slots on them. So that clearly means that these aren't going to be rotating at all. We're going to push those in like so. Then we're going to take these parts, and it's the ones with the pegs on that we need first, and they're going to push through here. You need to make sure that this tab lines up with the hole in that other piece, so they're going through like so. And then on the other side, we have this. Again, we've got a little tab and a slot. So we're going to push that in there. And same with that one. Make sure they're fully pushed in, like so. And then we've got a PB screw to secure each of those in place. So I'm going to go straight through there. And that's screwing into the back of the silver part. So just support it from the other side. Then you're not likely to push that silver piece out. And with those two screws in, we're going to cover those screw holes with these two plates. Now, we're probably going to need some glue to hold these in place. They have pushed in quite nicely. So if you do find they're loose and they fall out, just put a dab of glue on those. So we've got those in there. And again, no wheel action on that. They are static items. Next, we're going to take this piece and another joint. And this joint's going to push in like so. Again, just going to make sure that goes all the way through, like so. And that is actually all to do in that stage. Right, so move on to issue 66. Don't be surprised if this one ends up being lumped in with the previous issue, because as you can see, we're using some of the parts from 65. And then we've got a new body panel, and then we're just attaching it in there with a single screw. So not much to do in this one, so I'll probably bundle this one up with the rest of it. Right, now this is issue 66. Now that is one large chunk of metal. We're going to put that to one side for the minute, because we're not doing anything with that just a second. What we are going to do is bring over all of these components and the last couple of components we had in the last issue. And we're going to start off with this one and this one. And we're just going to match up that tab and push that into that hole, like so. And then we're going to take this piece. That's going to sit on there like that. So we've got this little protrusion here that's going to go into that hole there. It doesn't really hold itself in, but we're going to close it in with this. I'm just matching up the shape. Again, got that tab there, so you might want to just make sure that tab goes in the right place first. Now, if that tab doesn't line up, you need a pair of tweezers to potentially spin that around. So just push that one on there, and then we'll sandwich those together like so. And we're going to use a PB screw to hold that in place. Now, we had a couple of spare PB screws from the last stage. So that's like that. Now, I don't know why we couldn't have done that in the last stage, because we haven't used anything from this stage. But we are going to bring over this piece. And again, just watch out, if anything's on your build mat or anything like that. You don't want to scratch this up. This is going to sit in here. I'm just going to make sure that's folded up as much as it can be, which it is. That's going to sit on there. And then we're going to use a PM screw to hold that in place, and that's what was supplied in this pack. And it's going to go through this hole here. Now, this one doesn't have a split post, so I am going to put this into a little bit of oil. Now, a bit of an unusual thing for this build, putting these in oil, but this should help it cut its threads through. And that is all there is to do in that stage. Right, so we move on to stage 67. And as you can see, we have a little bit more of the saber-tooth body, and it looks like we're actually installing this So we'll have that at the end of it, which looks pretty good. So looks to be a lot more to do in this issue, so I will do this as a single issue. Right, so we have got a few of these inner pieces and some other accessories. Pretty much everything here looks like is all plastic, and we just got one pack of screws, which are PB screws in this case. And again, they're different PB screws than what we had in the previous issues. Right, so we're going to bring over what we've been working on previously. We're going to take this piece. Now, these two tabs are going to slot in to the two slots you've got there. I think it's just a case of line up all the slots, all the tabs, all the screw holes. So this grey part, for instance, needs to slot into there. These two need to slot in down the bottom. Right, so that's all clicked and pushed into place now. It does take a little bit of effort to get that to go in, but once it's in, that's how it looks. And then we've got two of the PB screws to secure that in place. To be fair, that's not falling out anytime soon. One in there. And the second one just going in there. Like so. Just put that to one side for a moment. Bring over this part that we've been working on. Flip it over this side. And we've got these pieces. And basically, we're going to be covering up a few of these holes. Now, you've got two with a couple of details, and then this flat one. It doesn't really show in the instructions of like how they go. I believe it's this one that's going to go in here. It does have a little lip that you need to line up, like so. And then these other two are going to cover up these screw holes. Now again, probably going to need some glue if they don't stay in by themselves. Although that does push in quite nicely and stay there. So might not need any glue. And again, same with that one. Both of those, you can see, are in there absolutely perfectly, which is great. And then we're going to take this piece and we're just going to line it up with what we've just put on, like so. And then we've got 3 PB screws to hold this in place. And that's going to go through here, here, and here. Just going to get the center one in first to hold that all in place. Followed up by this one. And then finally, this one at the front here. Wow, look at that. That looks absolutely amazing. Obviously, we've still got a little bit of work to do yet. So with those in place, we're then going to take this piece. That's going to slide over the top of there and hide that screw hole. We then have this piece here, which is going to hide all of that section. And then this piece is going to hide the rest of those screw holes. And then we have this final little detail piece, Now, as you can see, we've got one longer peg than the other, and we're going to have it this way around. So the longer peg goes in towards the front, and that will go in like that. There we are. That looks pretty damn good, doesn't it? If I just fold out these legs, and see this leg as well, we've almost got a full saber-toothed tiger. And you can see the size of it, it's barely fitting on camera. But that does look really, really good. And obviously, with this piece being metal, that's added a substantial bit of weight to this as well. So I really have no idea how heavy the Megazord's going to be eventually. But that's all there's to do in that stage, so we'll move on to the next one. Right, I'm going to combine these three together because there's not a great deal to do in any of them as an individual. And we are pretty much all working on the same sort of part, so you flick through this magazine. Now it is the Mastodon we're doing now, so it looks like we're not doing anything else with the Sabertooth, so I'll get rid of that off the workbench. You can see, not a great deal to do in this one. And then again, not much to do at all. So I'll bundle all those together. Right, so these are parts for 68, and as you can hear, got a bit more metal. So this is a large chunk of metal again. That's still plastic, that's plastic, and we've got two types of screws. So first thing I'm going to do is take this piece and this piece, and this is simply going to screw in like so. We're going to use a PWM screw for that, and that's this type, not the one with the thread lock on it. So we get that screwed in there, like so. We then have this silicone collar, that's going to sit in like so. We're going to take this piece, that's going to sit on to that collar. This way around like so. And then we've got a PB screw, which is one of these with the thread lock on it. So I'm not going to use any oil on ones that have thread lock on them. That's going to go down that shaft and just screw in like so. See, that's going to then allow that to move. And hopefully with the thread lock, it will mean that the screw won't come undone. But that's all there's to do in that stage. I think we're going to do pretty much the exact same thing in stage 69. You can see pretty much got the same parts. So, very similar to what we've done just a minute ago, taking this part, but this time we've got this shaped piece. That's going to go on there like so. And we're going to use a PWM screw for that one. Right, now I think the screws might be labelled wrong in this. Based on that one, where we used a non-thread lock screw and a thread lock screw, I think these are the wrong way around, or the instructions are the wrong way around. So I'm going to use the non-thread locked silver screw for this, which I believe, well, it's basically labelled PM, but the instructions are labelled, are showing PWM. And as you can see, PWM there showing as the thread locked version, and PM here going into there. So yeah, I'm going to do it the other way around because I say they're two different style screws. We've got a smaller flange on this one, a larger flange on this one. So I do believe the instructions are wrong. So I'm using the smaller flanged silver screw. I'm not going to say what they are name wise because I think they're wrong. That's going to go into there. And then we're going to take our silicone collar like we had before. Then I'm going to take this piece. That's going to go over that collar and sit in like so. And then I'm going to take the thread locked screw with the larger flange, and that's going to go in here. Just ensure that does actually turn and move nicely, which it does. Then we have this piece. Now, just checking, make sure we have a orientation for it. Now, it looks like it's going to go that way around with this slot flat. If you put it any other way, I don't think that slot's going to become flat. So this needs to be horizontal like so. I'm going to use these black screws for this. Which are labelled as PWM screws. Sorry, PWB screws. So that's like that. That can twist and turn, as you can see, and that is all to do in that stage. So again, not a great deal in stage 70. And we're going to be taking this piece, and we're going to be taking this little joint or hinge. That's going to go in like so. And we're going to use 4 of these silver screws to secure that in place. And these are labelled PWM screws. Again, not putting in any oil because these are pre-threaded screw holes. So with those in there, we're then going to take this piece. That's going to marry up like so. And again, we're going to use 4 of these screws. Now, the instructions do show it this way around, but it shouldn't make much difference because obviously this will rotate. So I'll match up the instructions for now. But again, 4 of these screws are going to hold this in place. I do believe this is like the beginning of the Megazord arm, or the hand possibly. Right, so we've got that in there, and as you can see, that does twist around. So if you did have it the wrong way around, it will just rotate around. As you can see, that'll come out like so. So, as I say, I'll line it up how they've got it in the instructions, but that is that piece done. We are going to bring over this piece very quickly. Now, we've got that piece spare at the moment. We haven't been asked to do anything with that piece. We need this piece, and we need this section of the Megazord. And what we're going to be doing is placing this into here. Now, we do need to spin that around. And this is going to go in from this side, matching up that hexagonal hole. And we're going to push that right the way in, like so. So we've got that poking out, just like that. And that is all to do in that stage. Right, it does look like the next few stages has a little bit more to do, so I'll probably just have them as separate stages in this case. So, not many parts in issue 71, but that is metal. So, all of that is metal. We've only got a couple of screws in this one. But first of all, we're going to put that to one side. We're going to bring over this piece. We're going to bring over this piece. Now we've got that slot there. Just going to spin that around. And that's going to slot in like so. So next up, we're going to take this piece. And we're going to take this piece. We'll flip it around like this. We also need this little black, little grey plastic piece that we had previously. We're just going to slot in just there. And then this is going to slot in just there, like so. And then this whole assembly is going to close in this section here. Right, I'd put this little pin in back to front. So when you put it in, you need the slot or the spade section on this side. And then you can slide that on like that. And then, hopefully, you can get this all lined up. Hopefully, get it all closed in together. So we've got that pin at the top there to line up. We've got that little clip section there that needs to line up. So that's clicked in. That's pushed in. That's all pushed together. And then we need to secure this together with a couple of screws. Now they can go through these two holes here. And they're these PP screws. And obviously that's going to be very top heavy at the moment. So we've got one going through there. And then the other one going through here. And that's going to secure that silver piece together. So, and that's all there is to do in that stage. I don't quite know how that all folds up, but we'll leave it like that for the moment. Right, so issue 72. And as you can see, we've got a couple of iconic pieces there. So we've got the plates that are going to go on the side there. And it really is working on a lot of the Mastodon and what I think will become the Megazord's arm and hand. Right, so these are our parts. We actually have two types of PWB screws. One with a very large flange, and we have these smaller ones with a smaller flange. And then we've got two PB screws. So first thing I'm going to do is bring over what we've been working on, and we're going to be placing these in the side. So one there, and one just there. So they're going to hide all those screw holes and looks absolutely fantastic. Now, we've only added one half of this, but that has added a substantial amount of weight to this. I'm going to say it a lot, but I have no idea how heavy this is going to be when it's finished, but a lot is my guess. Right, we're going to kick off with this piece for this issue. And we have this bit. Now that's going to go in this way around. I'm going to push that all the way in, like so. Then I'm going to take this piece, flip this piece over, so that then slots in like so. And that should then twist. I'm going to take this piece, going to flip that up, and then we need to attach it to this piece, like this. And we're going to secure that with two PWB screws, which are going to go through the holes here. Now there'll be the smaller PWB screws. So that's those secured, and then we have this plate, which is going to go on here and cover those screw holes, like so. Next up we have this piece, and we have these two detail pieces. Now with it this way up, we're going to take this piece and that's going to push on like so. The other side is going to do the same. Like so. And then we've got the larger flanged PWB screws. And that's going to go through here and hold that in place. And the other one going in just like this. So we have those there. So they are actually marked left and right, but unless you know where this is going on the Megazord, you don't have any clue which is left and which is right. So I have to come by the pictures for the minute. This is then going to attach to here. Now just try and work out the orientation of this. It looks like it's that panel facing upwards. In fact, actually, this will only go on one way round. It will only fit in one way round, so you can't really get it wrong, actually. We're going to use a PB screw to secure that in place. So it's going to go through that hole and into the part that we've got here. And that is all to do in that stage. So we move on to stage 73. And left hand of the Megazord. So we're actually building up the hand. Right, so here are all our parts for the Megazord hand. We do only have one pack of screws, which is PWB screws, I believe. So nice that we've only got a single type of screw in this pack. So first things first, looks like we're going to be taking this piece and this piece. We're just going to push those together. And I do believe that's our Megazord thumb. Next we're going to take this piece. Thumb is going to go into here. Now I'm guessing that's probably just going to be loose for the minute whilst I'm doing this next piece, which is going to be this piece here. Now we do have these little silicone things, but we haven't been asked to do anything for the thumb. But that's going to sit in there and capture that thumb piece. And then we've got two PWB screws that are going to secure that in place. So one in there. And one in there. Just make sure that's nice and tight. And then we can position that thumb wherever we want. So thumbs up. Right, so next we're going to need this part, or these two parts. We need to take these off the sprue. And this is part of the left wrist, I believe. We also need this piece. And we need these two little rubberized or silicone type pieces. I'm going to set those like that. And then using these parts, we're basically going to sandwich that all together. Like so. I'm going to use 3 of the PWB screws and get that screwed in. Now we're going to go from the thinner side to the thicker side. So just make sure you have those the correct way around. Just get a couple of these screws in first, Just get them starting to bite, and then we'll tighten them all up in just a moment. Now you're probably going to want these tight, but obviously not enough that it's going to strip the plastic out, because if this is the wrist, then obviously this is how we're going to hold the power sword up, and possibly the Megazord shield from the mammoth. So if that's the wrist, we want to make sure it's hopefully nice and stiff. So with that assembled, we now need to take this piece, and it's going to go this way around and slot in like so. And then we're going to take this piece and close that off. Got 3 more PWB screws to hold that together. So that's looking just like that, and we have our wrist that's capable of moving and obviously twisting as well. Right, next up we're going to be building up some fingers. Now they are numbered 1, 2, 3 and 4, and we also have these pieces which are also numbered 1 and 2. So it looks like number 1 gets a number 2 piece, number 2 gets a number 1 piece, number 3 gets a number 2 piece, and number 4 gets a number 1 piece. Just to make things a little bit more confusing, I guess. But as you can see, they are all numbered anyway, so you're not really going to get yourself too mixed up. So, number 1, we're going to take a piece labelled number 2. That's not going to fit, so that's wrong. Right, so number 1 is going to get a number 1 piece. It's only going to be a case of matching them up. So obviously they're left and right style fingers. So just matching up the shapes. So this is a number 1, and that's going on to number 3. And number 4 has a number 2. And as you can see, that's completely backwards to what they showed us here. In fact, I'm inclined to say that they're showing us the right hand there, because if you notice, all of these are the opposite way around. Right, so now we're going to create the hand. So we're going to start off with this one, which has this peg on this side. We're going to finish off with one that's got a peg on that side. Now, I'm sure they probably were numbered, but obviously we've now covered the numbers up. So, peg, peg, like so. One with no pegs whatsoever, like so. And then this one with a peg on that side goes in like so. Push all those together like that. And then we're going to take this piece. That's going to sit in like that. Just push it in. And then we're going to close it all together using this piece here. Again, just push that all together. And then we've got 2 PWB screws to hold that in place. One there, one there. Again, just making sure that is all fully closed up together. And as you can see, we've got fingers that we can move independently. Obviously, ideally, what we're just doing with that really is just grasping the sword or the shield. So they're not fully articulated, as you can see. I'm going to finish that off with just this plate here, and that's going to push on like so. So we have the left hand of our Megazord, and that's all it's doing at that stage. Right, so issue 74, the last of this build pack. And we got the right hind leg of the Mastodon dinosaur. So back on the Mastodon, this is where we're going to be putting our hand, as you can see. and that's where it flips over with the leg of the Mastodon. Now what I'll probably do, as I haven't done it for a while, is grab over the toy Megazord and do a little bit of a comparison for you. Right, so we've got another chunk of metal. It's actually wrapped up in this case. That's looking like that. And then we've got a whole load of plastic parts. Right, so first thing we're going to be doing is taking the section we've been working on so far, taking this metal piece, and we're just going to line that up. We've got a tab on the back here. That's going to line up like so. We've got a hole here in the center. We're just going to use a KB screw. That's one of these countersunk style screws. Get that screwed in there like so. Just make sure that it does go in all the way. Perfect. Next we have this bar, and we're going to flip this over. I think we're just going to put that down like that. So this bar has one side that's got a couple of flat spots on it. That's going to slot in like so. And then we're going to take one of these silver screws and secure that in place. Now it does say about putting the leg on, etc. But I think this is going to be the easy option first, because we've got to turn it over rather than have to balance everything in place. I think it's going to be easier just to screw that in first, like so. So we've now got that screwed in like that. Now we need to take one of these pieces, and we just need to cut those off the sprue. And we're going to take this piece. We've got two of these that look very similar. One has holes in just here, and one does not. So the one that does not have holes in is the one we want. We're going to put that piece, that detail piece in like so. And then that's going to go on there like so. And then we're going to take one of our silicone little rings, and that's going to push down into there. Yeah, might just need a screwdriver just to help push that down a little bit. Now once we've got that in, we just need to make sure that it actually does swivel apparently, which it does. And whilst keeping it up like that, we need to take our Megazord hand, and that's going to go on like so. Apparently we just need to check that that actually does move. We'll see if we do that. We need to make sure it's out of the way sort of thing. So it does go like that, and then it'll come out like so. That's great. So it looks like we want to do it so the leg is out at the moment. So we have it positioned like that. We've got another one of these silicone washers. That's going to go in there. We're going to take this piece and we're going to close that off. Oh, almost forgot. We need to take this red piece here, and that needs to slot in here first. So that goes in there like so, and then we'll capture that piece by pressing that together like so. And we've got two PWB screws to hold that in place. That's these black screws. So one in there, and another one in there. We're going to close that off with this piece, which we just need to get off the sprue. That's going to push in like so. Now it's a little bit loose, so might need to screw it in place. It just depends. Obviously, we're going to put something in that place anyway, so it's not likely to fall off. Just going to move this lot out the way for a second. Try not to bury my screws. is we now need to take this piece and this piece, and that's going to sit just like that. Now, just double checking that there's a right or wrong way round for it. It doesn't look like it. It does look like it's symmetrical. I'm going to secure that with 2 of these black PWB screws. 1. And 2. Just like that. That's then going to go onto the bottom of our foot. So just lining up the 2 holes and the 2 lugs there. Not the easiest thing to do. Right, we'll just lay it on its side like that, I think. We'll use 2 more of these screws through the centre of there. 1. And 2. And then we're going to take this piece. We're going to push that just on there. Now, I did notice that I jumped ahead and I sort of assumed what I was doing. But now is the point where we should have actually put that piece in. Not when I said originally. And I have just noticed, one, that's fallen out just now. But this one is also very loose. So maybe that hasn't pushed in far enough. Obviously, at the minute, there's nothing actually securing that leg to this, because it's only on that pivot. So if you do find that they're getting loose, it might be worth just pulling this off and gluing those in. But I won't do that just yet. I'm just going to leave it like so. But that is all there's to do in that stage, and all there's to do in that build pack. Now, at some point, this will go something like this, I guess. Like that. So that'll be hiding the Megazord hand, like so. And then obviously at some point, when it becomes the Megazord hand, we'll have this flip out. We'll have that flipped out the way. I think it all folds up together, to be fair, and hides in there somewhere. And I believe this will twist, because we've got that will twist and move. Now, I won't do it now in case I break that one, because obviously it's not got its partner. But that will spin around one way or the other, this way. And then obviously we'll have the hand on show there as well. Now, as I said, I will get the toy over, and I'll show you how we're comparing with the toy at the moment, with at least these 2 Zords anyway. Right, so here's our Mastodon from the toy, and you can see the actual absolute behemoth that this one is in comparison. Now, the bit that we've just built, obviously for the Megazord arm and hand, etc., it does work very similar on this one. We don't obviously have this little folding mechanism that covers this section. We've got a couple of cannons there, which will appear later on. So we've got the head that comes off, and then we have this piece. Now that's the part we've just built, basically. And you can see this opens up and separates, and that will go around the torso of the T-Rex. And then this will flip around one way or the other. That way. Nope, I was right the first time. Nope, maybe not. That flips around and becomes the Megazord hand, as you can see. Like so. So if we lay that out like so, I'll show you the same sort of thing on here. So in this case, we've got this folding mechanism, which I don't quite know how that will fold up and hide away at the moment, but I'm sure it will become apparent when we come to doing the transformation of this. But as you can see, we've got this section that will open up just like that, Now we've got the legs on there, just like we do there. That will obviously fold like that, and then we have the foot, which is going to go this way, I believe, and become our hand, like so. And obviously that will be the shoulder plate piece when it's in Megazord mode. So as you can see, very, very similar to the toy, but on a completely different scale. So if we just pop that all away for a minute, we can flip that back down. And close all that up. So that's our Mastodon. Now, see, I haven't brought the head down for this one. So again, we'll just close that one up as well. Now, this has got holes in the bottom, and that's so that when it's in tank mode, etc., it can use the cannons like that. I believe that's why we've put that slot in the bottom. And then these cannons just store in here when it's in Mastodon mode, I believe. Then you put the head back on, and that's our Mastodon. And then obviously we have the saber-toothed tiger. Now, this is the one we have with the toy. This is the one we have with the model. And again, it's just on a completely different scale. It's absolutely huge. And you can see with the toy that there's no articulation on the legs. They do just fold up like so. Got the tail that folds over. We don't have a tail at the moment. And again, no articulation on these legs either. They just fold up. So the tusks do fold up, but that would be it in tank mode. And then eventually it folds right up on itself like that and becomes obviously the foot of the Megazord. And then we're going to do something similar to this one. Also, we have the leg, and as you can see, there is actually articulation in there and in the foot as well. And you know we've got the articulation on the legs as well. So they can be all positioned and articulated. We have the tusks that will fold up, and we have the foot that will fold up like that, legs that will fold up like so. So that would be it in tank mode. So it will be probably a lot flatter than I've got it, but that will be how it rolls along in tank mode. I can't remember in tank mode whether it has these tusks down or not. Maybe let me know in the comments whether that's tusks up or tusks down in tank mode. But obviously with the tusks up, this will then all fold up like this, and that will become the Megazord foot. Again, a little bit of a comparison there for size. Now if I just bring up the rest of the Megazord, now obviously taking the arms off at the moment, but that is pretty much the Megazord, and obviously the height wise, you can see the height of the Megazord is pretty much the same height as the foot of the model. So it's going to be absolutely huge, as you can tell. But that is effectively the foot, and that's how it's going to sit, just like that. And you can see there is a little bit of articulation there. I don't know how much there's going to be, how much articulation there's going to be once we've got the other side on here. But there might be a little tiny bit of wiggle room. And obviously that's where the cup or the knee joint of the T-Rex is going to go. But that is always to do in that build pack. And I think this is looking absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please remember to hit the like button below and give us a massive thumbs up. So that's the Megazord done for another month. And it's absolutely mammoth. Now, I've shown you obviously the toy. This model always puts a smile on my face because I absolutely love it. I grew up with Power Rangers. I grew up with the toy, which at the time seemed massive to me when I was about 10 years old. Now this is massive and it's no toy. this weighs an absolute ton, and this is also got a fair chunk of weight to it. Now we've added that bit of more metal to it. It's going to be one solid piece when it's all done. A couple of things I would have preferred to have seen. I would have preferred to have seen that this actually be a wheel, same with these ones at the back here. So if you ever have it in tank mode, it would at least roll, but it doesn't look like it's probably going to do that. So depending on if you display it in tank mode or not, it's definitely not going to roll off your table for a start. So I suppose that's a good thing. But it would have just been nice to have had the wheels actually be wheels. But it is what it is. It's a static model, and to be fair, what I'm probably going to do is, when it's all done and finished, is show you all the individual Zords, show you it in tank mode, and then show you it in Megazord mode, and that's how it will stay on the base. Now, speaking of the base, I do have the next pack to do the base. However, I don't have the base here in the workshop. That's gone off to someone very special who might be doing something a little bit special with it to bring it to life, shall we say. So I'll leave that with you in your thoughts. And if you want to see how this progresses, or anything else that goes on in the workshop, including what might happen to that base, then please do remember to hit the subscribe button and ding the bell for notifications. And that way you won't miss out on future videos. Until next time, I'll see you around. Cheers.